of Swiss in this tournament, the Utrecht Special Event 2023.
Yeah, absolutely. Final round, 14th round here. We had 9 in that day 1. We are just about to finish our 5th one in this day 2, and we will be very, very shortly be able to find out who is going to make it into that top 8.
Very shortly indeed, but not before we've had this final Swiss match, and we're going to be bringing you another cracker. It's going to be Lorenzo Marcelli against Sam Bentham of the UK.
Yeah, both at a 10-3 record at the moment. When you are at that 10-3 record, some 11-3s will make it in. I believe I heard there's maybe 2 or 3 that will make it into the top cut. So 12 will guarantee it. There's going to be some players already that have guaranteed their way into that top 8 by getting at least those 12 wins. We'll have to see if the players that are at 10 wins at the moment, if they can squeak in.
Both of the trainers will be hoping to be one of those that gets into top cut, of course. And having seen a little preview of their teams, I think some fairly interesting picks coming out, especially in this Regulation B format. For example, we still see Golden Go here and there, of course, but something that was far more prevalent in Regulation A, and that is something that Lorenzo will be running, as well as very interesting Terror type on his Roaring Moon.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen very, very commonly that just the flying type on the Roaring Moon. You can see Dragon Lance. Dragon Lance definitely makes sense with the acrobatics as well, boosting up the damage. You're going to be seeing that here, but a little bit of an interesting one that you may not have seen before on the Roaring Moon coming up. That will be very, very interesting to see when we get there.
We'll be leaving that as a cliffhanger, trainers, and looking over to Sam's team. Not in any great detail at this point. Another couple of Pokemon we haven't seen so often in the tournament so far in Utrecht, but certainly throughout Regulation B have had some usage, and you'll have to see what they are in just a moment as we look at these standings coming up on the screen. So we have those 2, 12 and 1 players, Eric Rios and Juan Manuel Odriozola, a brilliant record. And then looking down, we have the 11 and 2s. We have 4 of them, and Alex Gomez, Marco Silva, who Jamie and I streamed earlier, Aurelian Sula, and Antonio J. Sanchez, who we just saw.
Yeah, very good. We have featured Aurelian on the very first game of the stream, and they did end up losing that match, so bouncing back from that into the 11-2 record. That is a very, very strong position for them to be in, and 1 more win will guarantee it. They may have already got it. Who knows? 11 wins might be enough, and if you've won 11 at this point with 1 game to spare, that puts you in better standing to get there.
It really does. And meanwhile, we have these 10 and 3s, each of whom will, of course, be able to clinch that final victory to put themselves in a better position of potentially going through to the top cut, such as our current world champion, Eduardo Cunha, Julio Tarlau, who we just saw on stream, Maurice Uteg, Oliver Escalin, who we featured earlier, and Leonardo Bononomi, who is, of course, one of those infamous trainers who's rocking that Choice Band Dragonite.
Yeah, absolutely. So just 1 win away, potentially, from that top cut, and even from what's then you'll make it into the top 16 and get some extra championship points on top of that as well, which is what we are playing for. But of course, we would like to get into that top 8 to be able to get our chance of becoming the champion.
Absolutely, as we can now see 17 through to 32. So we have those 9 and 4s at the bottom there, including our bars who we featured over the stream this weekend, and Roberto Parente, who we featured yesterday, Thomas Ravui, who we started the day with, and Niels Dunlop. Plenty of trainers we've featured on stream, and of course, plenty that we haven't.
Yeah, absolutely. So still a very, very good showing. 9-4 is nothing to scoff at all, and we'll get a nice chunk of championship points out of the running for at least getting into the top 8, but still very, very good to get into that day 2 and still get a good showing in this day 2 as well.
Yes, absolutely, and those championship points are what you need in order to accumulate to potentially go to Worlds in Yokohama this summer. The last day of which is, in fact, my birthday, August the 13th.
So nice.
Thank you. Happy Pokemon birthday to me, I suppose.
Yeah, my birthday present will be to you winning the whole thing.
Thank you, Jamie. What I've always wanted. Jamie Boyd as the world champion. That's always been on my birthday list every single year. As we mentioned before, though, our match that we'll be streaming very shortly will be between 2 10 and 3 record holders in Lorenzo Marcelli and Sam Bentham, coming up very shortly.
Yeah, absolutely. So very, very much crunch time at this point for these 2 trainers. 10 and 3, very shaky to be able to get into that top cut. But of course, if you get that 11th win, then you have every chance of making it in. It will come down to how well your opponents have done across the course of the day and whether you squeak into that top cut or not.
Yes, it absolutely will. The trainers will just be getting seated now. I'm sure they're ready to, well, on the one hand, they're ready to get out of the Swiss rounds and into the top cut, but on the other hand, what's the difference, really? It's still just another best of 3 of Pokemon. So hoping to keep their energy up. Perhaps they'll be having a lunch break after this. Perhaps they've had a little something to eat already. But just to keep themselves refreshed, because what a grueling weekend it's been, and the number of hours these trainers have been putting into battles so far this weekend. You know, it all adds up.
Yeah, absolutely. 14 rounds is a long amount of time to be playing Pokemon for. You do need to keep your mental energy going for sure. At least it is split up into the 9 and 5, so that is a bit more manageable. We did have 10 rounds of Swiss previously in some tournaments, and that was a long day for sure. Getting it into the 9 and then the day 2 of Swiss gives a little bit more of a break to the players, allows them to recover and get their mental energy back in for that day 2.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I can't imagine doing 10 rounds of Swiss. I remember doing the 9 at the London Open at Worlds last year, and that was plenty. So yeah, I take my hat off to all of these trainers for maintaining their mental resilience. Looking over to giving a little bit more of a taster of the teams we have coming up here. We have Sam Bentham rocking that Gothitelle, which of course is a Pokemon that's picked up in usage around the time that Wolf Glick was able to win the Orlando Regionals with his Gothitelle, that very well constructed Perish Trap team. Looking at his team, it doesn't seem like there's any Perish Song user on the team. It's just the Gothitelle there to be able to still trap some Pokemon in from Lorenzo's side, so they'll be unable to switch, and Sam is hoping will therefore be able to wreak havoc on his opponent's team.
Yeah, absolutely. Shadow Take's been one of the strongest abilities, arguably the strongest ability in VGC that we've had when it was introduced. So yeah, Gothitelle has been consistent in regards to that. So going to be rocking that here. Doesn't need the Perish to be effective. Trapping your opponents in, being able to target what you want is very, very useful here. So we'll have to see if that is the strategy that Sam is going to be bringing to this match, as we can see the players here. Sam on your left, Lorenzo on your right. Going to be a great game to round off this day 2 of Swiss.
Yes, they're in the chairs. They are looking pumped and ready for this final round of Swiss. Perhaps they've been practicing together. I wonder how much practice they have had into each other's team compositions. But we can't ignore this Golden Go. The Golden Go for Lorenzo is rocking the leftovers item, but it will also have Nasty Plot. So even though it will eat up those special attack drops from Make It Rain, it'll be able to boost it right back up with those Nasty Plots.
Yeah, absolutely. Leftovers seems to be picking up quite a bit on Golden Goes. A lot of players are opting for that for the consistent recovery, allowing the Golden Go to stay on the field for even longer, committing to Golden Go, sitting on the field, getting a Nasty Plot, and then being able to maybe protect, stall out a little bit, get the leftovers, get some defensive switches, and then be able to recover up that way. So going a little bit more defensive than maybe the choice specs with the immediate damage output. Life Orb as well would do massive damage, but leftovers allows a bit more longevity for that Golden Go.
And why don't we take a look now at the achievements of these players. Sam with the 2023 Liverpool Regionals top 16 very recently. 2022 Lille top 8 and top 8 of those regionals in 2019 as well. So yeah, a very well accomplished player. And Lorenzo seems to be making some headway towards them.
Yeah, absolutely. Could get one more win and get into that top 8 potentially with that record, and that could be the first accomplishment that we would be seeing from Lorenzo here. It's always really good to see these newer players coming into the fray and having some great success. 10-3 is a fantastic record. Could it be 11-3 and potentially into that top 8?
And there's a lovely little exchange there between the trainers, smiling at each other, making sure they're all settled and ready for a good game of Pokemon, which surely these trainers will be able to provide, given how well they have been doing in Utrecht so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be able to see their teams in a bit more depth. We have left you with that cliffhanger of the Roaring Moon. We'll be getting to that very shortly, but we're seeing Sam's team first. So some very, very strong Pokemon joining together here. You've got that Talonflame and the Gothitelle as the support. You can either set the tail in with the Talonflame, or you can just trap things in with the Gothitelle, get the Fake Out, and most notably, get the Thunder Waves off as well. A lot of Gothitelles in the form of Speed Control would probably be Trick Room. This team looks like it wants to go very fast, and Thunder Wave will definitely help with that. So being able to trap something in and definitely half its speed, it can't switch out, it's going to be very, very impactful.
Thunderwave will absolutely help with that, and as a bonus, you might just get a full power on your opponent on whichever turn it comes into play. So, yeah, it's a really interesting set from Gothitelle here, as well as that Grass Terror. So that will keep itself safe from any potential spores that could come out from Lorenzo's team as we get into Lorenzo's team, and there we have it, the reveal of the Terror type on that Roaring Moon. It is ground, so keeping itself weak to ice with that Terror type. Yes, hello there, Lorenzo. We are talking about your Roaring Moon, and we're now looking at that Stomping Tantrum on it.
Yeah, going to be able to make use of the Terror type of the ground offensively. Earthquake would have been the alternative, but it doesn't seem like there's anything off the ground on the rest of the team, so I'm not going to be able to make use of Earthquake particularly well. Therefore, Stomping Tantrum is the move of choice to get the extra damage. So really, really cool Terror type coming out from Roaring Moon. We saw a very similar Baxcalibur coming out from Aaron Zeng back in that top 4 that he managed to get over in Vancouver. That was a Terror ground Baxcalibur, so going for the Terror ground with this dragon as well, because we've seen that is effective on Baxcalibur, and it's proven to be somewhat effective here as well with the 10-3 record.
Yeah, really interesting to see another dragon going for a ground Terror. And looking at the rest of the team, we have 2 water Terrors on the Arcanine and the Golden Go, again with that nasty block. Grass on the Iron Hands, and a normal Terror on the Amoonguss, which, of course, the normal type is weak only to the fighting type, so a really good defensive choice there. Yeah,
and it's a type that you resist normally as the grass and poison, so very, very nice there, because you've only got 1 weakness. It's like the Terror Electric. You've only got 1 weakness with Electric as well, and that would be ground, and that's not too much of a concern for the grass and poison initially. But yeah, very, very cool Terror types coming out across the weekend for these Amoonguss. Electric has been very good. Water has been probably the most common, but normal of all things as well, going to be a very nice type as well.
Yeah, it's I love that creativity that Terastallizing offers to trainers, changing the type into really whatever you want, and the choice between offensive and defensive Terror types. The possibilities really are endless, and it's really exciting shake up to the format.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be getting very shortly into this game. We'll have to see if there's going to be any kind of support coming out from Sam's side of the field, potentially with the Talonflame going for the Will-O-Wisp, the Gothitelle. Going to be able to trap things in. If you lead with Gothitelle, whatever is led with by your opponent is staying on the field on that very first turn. So you get to adapt to that if that is your choice to bring to the match.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and the trainers are very shortly going to be able to get into this game. We can also see on Lorenzo's side the Assault Vest on the Iron Hands. That's something we've seen quite a few times, really upping the already bulky Pokemon that is the Iron Hands, and of course it's also has the Fake Out in its move set. So that's something that can be very annoying if you keep cycling it in, and Sam, for his side, matches that with a Fake Out on his Gothitelle.
Yeah, and it will come down to which Pokemon is able to move first. You would assume that Gothitelle is going to be able to move first, most likely against opposing Iron Hands. But we saw in previous tournaments, even in the final of a regional, where the Iron Hands outsped the opposing Gothitelle and was able to get the Fake Outs and the Volt Switches before it was able to attack. So the speed interactions could come into play here if Gothitelle is led and Iron Hands is led. Then it will come down to who is faster in regards to who wants to go for a Fake Out on that first turn.
And speaking of our Fake Out users, we do have the Iron Hands and the Arcanine being led on one side of the field, which belongs to Lorenzo. And as for Sam, it is his Talonflame and Fluttermane, and we're seeing the match from Sam's view.
Yeah, we know that there is Terra Ghost on the Talonflame, so if Sam did choose, you can go for the Terra and guarantee you are getting the Tailwind that turn, or do you just stay as your regular old typing in Fire Flying and assume that there is not going to be a Fake Out, given that you could go for a Terra Ghost as well. Then you'll be able to get some nice damage off with the Brave Birds. If you want to be going for that, you can go for a Will-O-Wisp this turn into the opposing Iron Hands, really reduce the damage output, because it doesn't really seem like you really need a Tailwind this turn, because both Pokemon on Lorenzo's side of the field at the moment are going to be slower than the Fluttermane and the Talonflame. You could just reduce the damage with the Will-O-Wisp, but the Fluttermane is in a pretty good position here to get off some massive damage, because it is immediately facing down the Iron Hands, and that is exactly what you want to go for with a Choice Specs Moonblast.
It absolutely is, and it seems like there's no Protect as Tailwind comes out from the Talonflame, bolstering the speed of the Pokemon on Sam's side of the field as a big Moonblast comes out into the Iron Hands, and as bulky as it is, even with that Assault Vest, it takes a huge amount of damage. A critical hit on Talonflame with a Snarl coming out, and Fluttermane certainly won't appreciate that special attack drop that it's just taken. Volt Switch, meanwhile, comes out from Iron Hands into Talonflame. Takes Talonflame to about a half of its health as the Iron Hands goes back to Lorenzo in favor of something in the back.
Yeah, so if that Pokemon would have been faster than the opposing Pokemon, then the Tailwind would have come into play. Seems like the Golden Go is the Pokemon of choice, would have undersped the Fluttermane and the Talonflame regardless. So a little bit of a missed opportunity to go for a Will-O-Wisp on that turn. You could have gone for the Tailwind on this turn and get an extra one in the future, but very, very nice damage into the opposing Iron Hand with the Moonblast. That's going to be in range of pretty much any attack that Sam would want to go for in the future as well. So very, very nice to get all that damage on it to start off with. But the fact that you've locked into Moonblast and you don't have Flare Blitz available on your Talonflame means that this Golden Go is actually in a pretty reasonable position and could get a very free Nasty Plot here if it chooses to.
Yes, and Golden Go getting set up is definitely something to be feared as Sam switches out his Fluttermane in favour of the Iron Bundle, which joins the field, activates its booster energy with its Quark Drive ability and raising its speed. Talonflame able to go for a Taunt onto the Arcanine, ensuring any potential Will-O-Wisps will not be coming out from the Arcanine. And indeed, that is what it was doing. As Nasty Plot does come out from the Golden Go, it's a brilliant opportunity to boost its special attack by 2 stages.
Yeah, there was not really anything threatening that Golden Go because you locked into the Moonblast on the Fluttermane. That would have been why it needs to switch out there and lock into something else in the future. You've got the damage you need onto the opposing Iron Hand, so Shadow Ball would be able to hit pretty much everything very, very well as well. The Iron Bundle can do some nice damage to the opposing Golden Go if it wants to go for a Hydro Pump, and you've taunted the Arcanine, so that can't protect or go for anything to stop any Hydro Pumps into that slot, so that would be a very, very free hit into that as well. You just need to contend with the fact that it could go for a Terra into a Water type defensively so that it would be able to survive that, and then you'd be able to get off another Snarl, but switching out is perfectly fine as well.
Yes, or indeed you could switch, and Lorenzo instead brings out his Iron Hands again that is on such low health from the first turn. Bundle keeping itself safe here with a Protect for Sam, and next up it's Talonflame going for the Brave Bird into the Iron Hand. Is not quite enough for the knockout, and Talonflame does take recoil damage from that. Make It Rain coming out from the Golden Go, its signature move, and the Iron Bundle of course keeps itself safe, but it is enough to pick up the knockout on the Talonflame. Golden Go does take that recoil in the form of a special attack drop, so Sam has lost a Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely, but that's a switch into something in the back that can do a lot more damage than the Talonflame can do. I did say that the Iron Hands would be in range of any attack, apparently not an Intimidation Brave Bird, so not too much damage coming there. Now it is definitely in range of any attack that Sam would want to go for. Even an Icy Wind would probably pick it up at this point, but you've got some massive hitters in the back that can do some serious damage to Lorenzo's side of the field. Leaf Fake Out is active because the Iron Hands has just switched in, so unless you're switching in not your Fluttermane, then that can be faked out. If you do switch in your Fluttermane, like we are seeing for Sam's side of the field, only the Iron Bundle would be affected by that Fake Out. So you'll be able to do whatever you want with the Fluttermane this turn. You are not locked into Moonblast, so you can actually threaten down this Golden Go pretty well with a Shadow Ball. That would probably be able to pick up the knockout, given that it's going to be the choice specs on the Fluttermane. And then that might mean that there needs to be a defensive Terror coming from the Golden Go. Will be the Water typing, so if you're predicting that, then maybe you can go for the Thunderbolt instead to be able to get some massive damage, as well as the Freeze Dry. If you do go for the Terra Water, suddenly Golden Go will be weak to the Freeze Dry, so you do need to be careful in regards to that, but you do need to do something about this choice specs Fluttermane, and it looks like there is going to be a Terra.
Really interesting to see Sam hovering over the moves there. What's the best option, as it is a Terra coming out onto his Fluttermane, becoming the Steel type. Bolstering its defense against certain attacks. Of course, it now won't appreciate a fighting type move from Iron Hands. Golden Go, in fact, goes for the Protect. And meanwhile, Unbundle attempts to Freeze Dry into that slot, seemingly expecting a Terror from the Golden Go. And the Fluttermane, unfortunately, it is a double up into the Golden Go slot that protects. So Iron Hands is able to get off a fairly free attack now, and it's the Wild Charge into the Bundle, which is enough for the knockout. So that goes down for Sam as well. He is down to his final 2 Pokemon.
Very, very nicely done. That Iron Hands looked like it wouldn't be able to get off any more attacks. Even a Fake Out would have been nice, but that was a whole KO that it got on the Iron Bundle with the Wild Charge. It does sacrifice itself in order to do that. Drain Punch is probably not enough to KO the Iron Bundle. You do need that extra little bit of power from the Wild Charge, but in order to get that to one-hit knockout, you do take recoil. It was so low in anyway, it was definitely going to be able to KO itself with that. So Great Tusk is joining the field for Sam. Arcanine's joining the field for Lorenzo. That means you get an Intimidate on the Great Tusk at least. And Great Tusk is the last Pokemon joining the field for Sam, paired with that Fluttermane, so you can't switch out. You are going to be intimidated for the rest of this game, which is really, really nice for Lorenzo, which they have the opportunity to still switch out. They've still got another Pokemon waiting in the back. If you wanted to cycle the Intimidate, you definitely can. The Fluttermane is turned into a Steel type. That's going to turn it weak to the fire type attacks that could be coming out from this Arcanine as well.
It is. Lorenzo definitely in the driver's seat for the moment as he decides to Terra his Golden Go into the water type. So it will now resist some of the moves that it wouldn't have been able to before. It's certainly a defensive Terra type water on Golden Go. Great Tusk keeping itself safe with a Protect. Won't be taking any damage this turn as Fluttermane goes for that Shadow Ball into Golden Go, which now, of course, the Golden Go will be able to take much better, but it is still huge damage and would be a 2-hit knockout. It's Will-O-Wisp coming out from the Arcanine into Great Tusk, which keeps itself safe. And, of course, Arcanine now cannot be taunted. Make It Rain coming out again from Golden Go. Great Tusk is safe from it, but Fluttermane obviously takes that far better than it would have been able to before because it is now the Steel type, and now we see the Leftovers activation for the Golden Go.
Probably won't be enough to put it out of range of that Shadow Ball, given that it's not recovered past back up to over half HP from that previous Shadow Ball. So really, really nice damage coming there, and showing that it would have been able to knock out the Golden Go in one shot if it did not go for the defensive Water Terror. So really strong damage coming out from this Fluttermane, and a really good defense typing itself. The Steel means that the Make It Rain really did not much damage at all. A little bit of a missed opportunity that you could have gone for a Flare Blitz into the opposing Fluttermane, but instead the Will-O-Wisp catching the Protects, well, the Protect catching the Will-O-Wisp more like, was very, very nice for Sam.
Very nice indeed, as this Shadow Ball comes out from Fluttermane to Arcanine. It's massive damage thanks to those choice specs, but Arcanine is able to respond with Flare Blitz, which again is now super effective against this Fluttermane. Fluttermane goes down and Arcanine will be taking some recoil damage from that, making its HP even lower, very low indeed, as Great Tusk is left alone on the field, and it goes for a headlong rush into the Arcanine. Arcanine goes down. Of course, the recoil of that attack lowers your defense and your special defense. So now it is Great Tusk versus Golden Go. But of course, Lorenzo does have a Pokemon as of yet unrevealed in the back as it goes for it. Oh, big Make It Rain into the Great Tusk after those defense drops. And Great Tusk just goes down. So Lorenzo takes that first game.
Yeah, and gets to hide what Pokemon was waiting in the back as well. So being able to preserve some information that could have been revealed. If you went for an Earthquake with your Great Tusk, then that would have been able to KO both of the Pokemon, especially with the Life Orb. Then you'd be able to reveal that Pokemon in the back. And if it's a Moongus or if it's Roaring Moon, you probably had the game with Great Tusk. If it's Iron Bundle, you probably still lose. So unsure whether that would have come into play if there would have been an Earthquake coming out from that Great Tusk. We will never know, except for Lorenzo. He will know, but we may see what was going to happen in that Game 2, maybe in the Game 3 as well, depending on if they do choose to bring the same Pokemon. But yeah, that was a very, very back and forth game. It seemed like there were a couple of opportunities that you could have done some very, very good damage, like the Arcanine going for the Flare Blitz into the Fluttermane. It did it a turn after it could have done, but still was enough to pick up the knockout there. Didn't need the Will-O-Wisp into the Great Tusk, because then you were doing enough damage with the Make It Rain single target, even though you're back to neutral at that point, and you've got a minus special defense drop, easily enough to pick up the KO. Yeah,
very easy indeed. Yes, it goes to show how strong Golden Go remains in this format. Yeah, and that's the problem with going for an Earthquake. Of course, you damage your partner Pokemon, but that doesn't matter so much if that Pokemon has gone down, as we saw with the Flare Blitz into the Fluttermane. So would have been worth Sam going for that Earthquake on the Great Tusk, but 2020 hindsight, he knows that now, and going into Game 2 might have to shake up his plan a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I keep asking this, is Talonflame necessary?
Yeah.
Because on all of the matches so far, or at least in this game, you outsped with all of your Pokemon. There was the Golden Go, there was the Iron Hands, and there was, well, maybe the Arcanine outsped. Outsped the Great Tusk, at least. But for the most part, the Tailwind seemed a bit unnecessary. The Brave Bird damage was very lacking. Like, it wasn't even able to pick up that Iron Hands that was like 20% HP. So is the Talonflame necessary here? Apparently, according to Sam, it is going to be necessary in this Game 2 once again.
According to Sam, it is going to be necessary, as neither of the Pokemon on his side of the field appreciate taking the Intimidate drop from Arcanine. It's Talonflame and Great Tusk for Sam, and it's Arcanine and Iron Hands for Lorenzo.
Yeah, so this is a very good position for the Great Tusk. You have taken an Intimidate, but you're facing down two Pokemon that are weak to ground. So maybe you're going to force a Terra straight away to get a defensive Terra so you can survive the Earthquake / the Headlong Rush that could be coming out from Great Tusk. You may need Tailwinds to be able to outspeed the Arcanine. You could go for a Taunt to stop the Will-O-Wisp. That would also work. But you've got to contend with the fact that there still could be a Fake Out into the Talonflame. You've got to play the mind game of, does it go for Terra Ghost to avoid a Fake Out? Because if you go for a Fake Out into the Talonflame, no Taunts, no Tailwinds, Arcanine might be able to outspeed the Great Tusk and get a Will-O-Wisp. And then even though you're weak to ground with both Pokemon, that would be very, very good for you. But no Fake Outs here, just going to be protecting the Arcanine.
Just going to be Protect from the Arcanine and also a Protect from Great Tusk for Sam. So it's Talonflame and Iron Hands remaining able to make some moves. But Taunt is going into that protected Arcanine, so won't be having any effect this turn. Iron Hands, meanwhile, is able to go for a Volt Switch, breaking the Gale Wings on Talonflame, so its flying type moves will no longer be priority. And Iron Hands goes back to Lorenzo in favor of something in the back. And we see that it is the Iron Bundle coming out for Lorenzo instead.
Yeah, so if that was the Pokemon waiting in the back in that game one, then it wouldn't have mattered if the Great Tusk went for that Earthquake, because then Freeze Dry just follows up and gets the KO. But now that you've broken the Gale Wings on the Talonflame, your Iron Bundle is going to be able to outspeed. That means you can fire off your attacks before any Tailwinds could come out, before any of the Taunts could come out to stop the Will-O-Wisp as well. You probably need to go for Hydro Pump to KO the Talonflame. Freeze Dry probably is not enough to be able to do that, but you don't need to worry about the Talonflame this turn because it is actually switching out instead.
Talonflame is switching out in favor of Sam's Iron Bundle, which of course will be able to take a Hydro Pump much, much better. And the Booster Energy activates on Iron Bundle, which boosts its speed. Great Tusk is also being switched out for Sam, so Sam is revealing all 4 of his Pokemon very early on, and it's Fluttermane in the back for him as well. So not that Gothitelle or Tyranitar, unfortunately. And it's a Hydro Pump into Sam's Iron Bundle, which Iron Bundle manages to dodge. Meanwhile, Will-O-Wisp comes out into the Fluttermane, which was before, of course, a physical attacker in the Great Tusk. So Fluttermane doesn't mind taking a burn so much. Its physical attack is not what it indexes on, rather its special attack.
Absolutely. The Hydro Pump would have been nice little bit of chip damage into the opposing Iron Bundle. It might have put it in range of Flare Blitz, slash a Freeze Dry coming out from the Iron Bundle on Lorenzo's side of the field. But not too bad taking the burn on the Fluttermane here. You can go for an Icy Wind, get the speed control going, and potentially be able to outspeed in the future. You've got the Booster Energy on both Pokemon, so we'll have to see the speed interactions between both of those. Because there is the Booster Energy, then the Iron Bundle should be outspeeding the opposing Fluttermane, even if there is an Icy Wind. It will depend on how they have trained. If you've gone for the max speed on your Iron Bundles, you'll still outspeed the Fluttermane after the Icy Wind. So actually, no, because of the speed interaction, you actually speed tie if they are max speed as well.
You do. So it'll be a roll, essentially, as Arcanine withdraws in favor of Iron Hands for Lorenzo, as Iron Bundle for Lorenzo goes for a Protect, keeping itself safe. Hydro Pump, however, coming out from Sam's Iron Bundle into the Iron Hands, and you can see just how bulky that is with the amount of damage that was done. Moonblast is goes out into Lorenzo's Iron Bundle, but of course it keeps itself safe as Fluttermane takes another turn of Burn Chip.
Yeah, that's a Hydro Pump coming out. We saw how little Freeze Dry did. That's still such pitiful damage coming out, just showing the bulk of the Iron Hands there. Being able to position once again back on the field. You can go for a Fake Out into the opposing Iron Bundle, stopping any Icy Winds. Therefore, your Iron Bundle on Lorenzo's side of the field can do whatever it wants this turn. It can do some very nice damage to either Pokemon with the Freeze Dries or the Hydro Pump into the Fluttermane. It can get the speed control going itself by going for an Icy Wind. Or we've seen Lorenzo doesn't even need to click Fake Out. Most of the time, they've actually just been Volt switching out or just going on the offensive. Wild Charge was enough to KO the opposing Iron Bundle. That could be happening once again because the Iron Bundle on Lorenzo's side of the field isn't staying in here.
It's not. It's switching out in favor of Arcanine, which is going to come in and deliver an Intimidate drop to Iron Bundle and Fluttermane. Neither of them mind about that too much because they are, of course, special attackers. And now it's time to Terrastallize. And this Terror is going into Lorenzo's Iron Hands, and it's revealing that Grass Terror type there. A nice defensive Terror for the Iron Hands, as it's still able to threaten massive damage, having not taken much in return, as Icy Wind does come out. So this is now a super effective hit on the Iron Hands, but more importantly, it will be dropping the speed of the Arcanine and the Iron Hands. And again, even though it's super effective, it's not the most powerful of moves. Iron Hands takes it very well. Moonblast coming out into Iron Hands takes it down to very low health, but Wild Charge is not enough to pick up the knockout onto Fluttermane. Iron Hands, of course, took that Moonblast far better as a Grass type than it would have done as a Flying type, and now as a Fighting type, I mean. And now Fluttermane only has one turn left in it, it seems.
Yeah, the burn actually coming into play here. Even though you like to get the burn on the physical attackers, there is that residual damage as well. We've seen these so impactful over the weekend with poisons. Burn can do that just as well. A little bit slower. It does a little bit less than the poison damage, but enough here for the Fluttermane. Just doing 9 damage to the Fluttermane with the burn. It's got 9 HP, it won't survive this turn. But it's being able to do some massive damage with the Moonblast. It was a very nice defensive terror on the Iron Hands to be able to survive, and this is just one more turn that the Fluttermane gets on the field.
It is, and it could prove to be crucial as Arcanine for Lorenzo goes for a protect. The Hydro Pump was going into that slot, so Arcanine is kept safe from that, and meanwhile Fluttermane is able to respond with a Moonblast into the Iron Hand, so it goes down, and with it, it takes the Terastallizing. So no more Terra available for Lorenzo, and Iron Hands is down. Lorenzo is down to 3 Pokemon, and we know it's that Arcanine, Iron Bundle, and one other, as Fluttermane does take that burn chip. So it provided fantastic use for Sam there. And both trainers now down to 3 Pokemon, and it's Great Tusk and Talonflame in the back for Sam. A big turn.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to trade the Paradox Pokemon there in the Iron Hand and the Fluttermane, so being able to get some nice KOs. We've got the potential of bringing in the Talonflame once again. You can get that Tailwind to guarantee that your Iron Bundle and then your Great Tusk in the future is going to be able to outspeed everything. But you should be able to just spam Icy Wind at this point, because the Iron Bundle on Lorenzo's side has switched out and used up its booster energy, and we still have the Iron Bundle on Sam's side of the field. Did it take an Icy Winds previously from the opposing Iron Bundle? I think it switched out, so I may not have taken that Icy Winds, but going to be able to guarantee it with the Talonflame. So you can just go for 8 Tailwinds to guarantee that you are going to be able to move first, because Iron Bundles join the field on Lorenzo's side of the field. Or once again, you know the Arcanine has gone for a Protect, you know that there is no Terra available. You could once again launch a Hydro Pump into that slot, and that would be a KO on the opposing Arcanine. Maybe not on whatever could switch in. We saw it was Golden Go in that first game. That would still do a very, very nice chunk of damage to the Golden Go. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see some kind of Hydro Pump into that slot once again. Or if you do want to be going on the offensive into the Iron Bundle instead, a Brave Bird and a Freeze Dry might get quite close to being able to pick up the knockout, depending on how bulky Lorenzo has trained their own Iron Bundle. But you've got the speed advantage on Sam's side of the field because of that Talonflame.
Of course, yes, the Arcanine does switch out to keep itself safe from a potential Hydro Pump, and we have the reveal of Golden Go as the 4th Pokemon in the back for Lorenzo. Oh, but it's a miss from the Iron Bundle's Hydro Pump into Golden Go, as Icy Wind is able to come out from Lorenzo's Iron Bundle into Sam's own, as well as Talonflame, dropping their speed. So a good amount of chip damage would have been able to be done there to the Golden Go, but of course Hydro Pump is not a 100% accurate move, as Tailwind is set up by the Talonflame for Sam's team.
No, both Iron Bundles have missed a Hydro Pump at this point, so they're even. So it's not the most reliable of moves. It would have been a very, very nice chunk of damage into the Golden Go, probably enough to knock it out in 2 shots. Maybe not quite if you factor in the leftovers and the fact that you can protect to get a little bit more recovery. So the Golden Go's actually in still a pretty nice position here. There's no fire move on the Talonflame once again. Might be in range of a Make It Rain, and it would be in range of Make It Rain if you follow it with an Icy Wind from the Iron Bundle as well. So even though Sam has the speed advantage, not thrusting enough damage from both of these Pokemon into the opposing side of Lorenzo's, because they're both still at full HP. They should be able to shrug off the attacks somewhat.
They should be able to, and Iron Bundle will be able to shrug off all attacks as it goes for a Protect. This time, Hydro Pump does connect into Golden Go, dealing just shy of half its health, but Brave Bird doubling up into that slot. It's a not very effective hit, but crucially, it brings it down to lower health. It was perhaps predicting a Terror there, which would have been a neutral hit, as Golden Go is able to go for a nasty plot, sharply boosting its special attack. But of course, if the opposing team on Sam's side is able to move first, doesn't matter too much. You can aim to stall out the Tailwind perhaps, but the leftovers recovery providing a little bit more health for Golden Go in either case.
It was a really nice call going for that Golden Go with both of the Pokemon. That extra chip from Brave Bird may not seem a lot, but it's probably put it in range of another Hydro Pump. Even after another round of leftovers recovery, it'll be very close if it is. And that was a potential for Lorenzo to go on the offensive with the Iron Bundle there. You could have gone for an Icy Wind, reduced the speed even more. You could have probably picked up a KO on Talonflame, even with Freeze Dry, not having to risk the Hydro Pump. That would have given a switch into the Great Tusk in the back that would have still been in Tailwind. So maybe actually better to leave the Talonflame on the field there.
Maybe better indeed, as Golden Go is able to go down because the Hydro Pump does connect. So that goes down for Lorenzo as a Brave Bird comes out into Iron Bundle. It survives with maybe 2/3 of its health. Freeze Dry can come out from Lorenzo's Iron Bundle into the Talonflame, and that will take care of that. So far, it's been knockout for knockout in this game, and both of these trainers are down to their final 2 Pokemon in the Great Tusk and Iron Bundle for Sam, and the Arcanine and Iron Bundle for Lorenzo.
Yeah, so you get to intimidate the Great Tusk, so that might help out a little bit, but both Arcanine and Iron Bundle have taken some chip damage here. Arcanine's probably able to survive a headlong rush with full HP, but that little bit of chip that is taken previously might put it in range of that attack even after the Intimidate. At least Earthquake probably shouldn't be knocking you out because you've been able to intimidate the opposing Great Tusk. But you've got to contend with the fact that the Iron Bundle is still able to do some massive damage itself. Hydro Pump should be able to pick up the knockout on Arcanine. It'd be really close if the freeze dries enough on the opposing Iron Bundle because it's taken significant chip damage, just a bit above half HP. But you still have the speed on your side of the field for Sam because of that tailwind from earlier from the Talonflame. Is able to launch off the attacks that they want to first. Is a close combat enough into the Iron Bundle? Because you could be going for Hydro Pump into the opposing Arcanine and close combat into Iron Bundle, and that should be able to pick up double KO.
It absolutely should be, but instead, Lorenzo's Pokemon both keep themselves safe, scouting out what's going to happen next from Sam's side. Going for a double protect as Iron Bundle goes for Icy Wind. Of course, Arcanine is protected and the Iron Bundle is protected, so that would have dropped the speed of both of the Pokemon on Lorenzo's side. Great Tusk was attempting a close combat into the Iron Bundle, which would, of course, have been a super effective hit. But going into this next turn, of course, with the Tailwind now stalled out, neither of the Pokemon on Lorenzo's side of the field can safely protect.
Yeah, no, and we've just seen that Sam confirmed for us, yes, that is going to be slower on their Iron Bundle. You've got the -1 drop from earlier from the Icy Wind on Sam's, and the Iron Bundle on Lorenzo's side of the field is at neutral. But I believe that the Iron Bundle sat on the field the entire time and still has its booster energy speed boost as well. So the speed interactions could be very, very crucial here for the opposing Iron Bundles. -1 booster energy Iron Bundle still underspeeds a neutral Iron Bundle because of the interactions of how the speed boost and drops work. So Lorenzo's theoretically going to be moving first here.
Theoretically, as Sam's Iron Bundle, in fact, keeps itself safe with a Protect. Freeze Dry was coming out into Sam's Iron Bundle, so a really good call from Sam there. Iron Bundle is protected from that Freeze Dry. Arcanine was attempting a Flare Blitz into Sam's Iron Bundle, so an excellent call from Sam, doubling up into the Pokemon that protected, as Great Tusk is able to go for a close combat into Lorenzo's Iron Bundle with a crit that did not matter, lowering the defense and special defense of the Great Tusk, and now Lorenzo is just down to his Arcanine.
Yeah, that should be it for Sam for this one. You can risk the Hydro Pump if you do want to. That would be able to pick up the knockout on the Arcanine. You could probably get away with just a Freeze Dry, putting it in range of Headlong Rush for sure, because even after a -1 drop, you shouldn't be getting KO'd by the Flare Blitz from the opposing Arcanine. You could always go for an Icy Wind to try and guarantee that you'll be able to outspeed. Freeze Dry would have been the way to get it 100% though. You could have been maybe critical hit by a Flare Blitz into the opposing Arcanine if you don't go for the Icy Wind, but then you've got the chance to go for a Hydro Pump as well. So the odds were very much in favour of Sam winning that game, and Lorenzo decided not to see the end of that and forfeit, taking us into the deciding Game 3.
Yes, he knew that it was very, very unlikely indeed that he'd be able to work his way back up from that game, bringing us to a very exciting Game 3. It's one game apiece. Lorenzo took the first, Sam took the second, and what adjustments did you like to see from Sam in that second game?
Well, actually, the Talonflame did something.
Yeah.
The Tailwind was actually useful. It had to be stalled out from Lorenzo's side of the field to try and get the Iron Bundles into position so that they could get the speed control that they wanted. And it just was a very, very nice call at the end with the Protect from the Iron Bundle on Sam's side of the field, because they positioned themselves into position. So Lorenzo managed to get their Iron Bundle so that it was faster than the opposing one, and then being able to catch that with the Protect, double up into that. Game deciding, very, very nice from Sam. But do you still need to go for the Talonflame? You can leave it in the back. You don't need to lead with it, because it seems like Lorenzo is going with a slightly slower option to start off with, because of the fact that if you go for Tailwind, it doesn't actually matter that you're going for Tailwind, because I would have undersped you anyway. Because they've been leading with the Arcanine and the Iron Hands for both of these games so far. We'll have to see if that is going to continue. And the Golden Ghost still underspeeds everything as well. The Tailwind's mainly for Iron Bundle, because that's trying to counteract any of the speed controls with its own Icy Wind as well. So maybe if you bring the Talonflame, you can leave it in the back. Could you leave with the Gothitelle to try and trap this Arcanine and Iron Hands in once again? That is being led, but no, it's just the Talonflame once again.
It is Talonflame again with Great Tusk for Sam. It was a lead that worked for him in the previous game. And it's Iron Hands and Arcanine for Lorenzo, and it gets an Intimidate drop onto both the Talonflame and the Great Tusk. They are both physical attackers, so they don't so much appreciate taking that drop.
We saw how much damage the Talonflame would be doing with its Brave Birds. Really, really pitiful damage into the opposing Iron Hands that we have seen. You can still go for a Will-O-Wisp into the opposing Iron Hands. If you do connect with that, that would be very nice indeed. You can still go for a Taunt to the opposing Arcanine to stop the Will-O-Wisp. You can go for a Tailwind to make your Great Tusk faster to begin with, but you still have to contend with the Fake Outs from the Iron Hands. It's always been going for Volt Switch, in fear of maybe going for the Terra Ghost on the Talonflame, but maybe this is the time to go for Fake Outs, because you've still got the Mind Game, and at the moment there's still been no Terra Ghosts. So could you go for a Fake Out into the Talonflame this turn to now a Will-O-Wisp into the Great Tusk?
Well, you could, and there could be a Terra into the Ghost type. Oh, that's certainly a Terra. Which of these Pokemon is it going to go into? It is into the Great Tusk rather than the Talonflame. So the Great Tusk becomes a ground type, maximizing the damage output of its ground moves with a triumphant roar with its Crystal Crown. And it is a Fake Out coming out from Iron Hands into the Talonflame, which of course flinches it, not able to go for a priority move. It is Will-O-Wisp, however, coming out from Arcanine into the Great Tusk. So it's been intimidated, it's now burned, so its attack stat is halved. But even so, Great Tusk will be able to deal some decent damage with a ground type move into the Iron Hands, and it's just about half of its health that it brings it down to. Of course, though, Great Tusk does need to eat up a defense and special defense drop in return for that.
That's still fantastic damage. That's -1 and burned, and that was almost half HP to one of the bulkiest Pokemon we have in the format. So, granted, it was a super effective hit, but that is still very impressive and should put it in range of just a tiny little bit of extra chip from the Brave Bird, and then that follow-up KO from the Headlong Rush would get it. Are you able to get the KO with a Brave Bird and a Earthquake? Because if you are, that's going to be extra damage that you'll be able to get into the opposing Arcanine, and also not drop your defense by one stage as well.
As it is, it's Brave Bird into Iron Hands, which will mean that Talonflame takes a little bit of chip damage, and Flare Blitz comes out into Great Tusk, bring it down to about a third, a quarter of its health. Arcanine takes that recoil damage, and it's another Headlong Rush rather than an Earthquake into the Iron Hands, which is an interesting decision, given that, as you said, Jamie, Arcanine would have taken super effective damage, but also Talonflame is immune to any ground type move, so it would have kept itself safe. But as it is, Iron Hands does go down for Lorenzo.
Yeah, so potential damage could have gone into the Arcanine that turn. It would still been significant. Like, you're still -1 and burned, but we saw how much damage it did to Iron Hands. That would have still been probably half to the Arcanine, which would have been able to put it in range of something in the future. But just doubling up into this Iron Hands, it's nice to be able to take care of that super bulky Pokemon, but you have not gone for your speed control yet, and here is the Iron Bundle with its booster energy, definitely outspeeding the Talonflame, which had its Gale Winds broken, and this Great Tusk is being outsped by the Arcanine. We already saw how much the Flare Blitz did into that, because it was only a -1. It's going to do even more damage, unnecessarily putting it over the top for the KO for the Flare Blitz. So yeah, you'd just really be able to go for a Hydro Pump into the Talonflame and a Flare Blitz into the Great Tusk. If the Hydro Pump does connect, you are sorted. But the Talonflame does want to switch itself out here, not want to take that Hydro Pump at all.
Yes, understandably, Talonflame switches out in favour of a Fluttermane, and instead it's Fluttermane that takes the Hydro Pump, which Fluttermane takes pretty well, just above half its health remaining, but this Flare Blitz is going to be finishing it off. So Fluttermane goes down immediately for Sam. So he's lost that big damage output that could have come out there. This Great Tusk has been left alone and is able to go for a close combat onto the Iron Bundle. Iron Bundle, of course, has pretty decent physical defense stats, so it's able to take that relatively well. It's left with about a third of its HP. Great Tusk is still sitting around, and it's worth mentioning, of course, the Life Orb on the Great Tusk as well, which, of course, will be contributing to its damage output despite the Intimidate drop and despite the burn.
But it's also going to ensure that it's now in range of a burn, so even if the Great Tusk doesn't go for an attack this turn, it should be picked up by that burn. So all those little bits of damage helping out to put this Great Tusk in range of one final turn, because the burn was ticking away, the Life Orb was ticking away, you got extra damage from the Flare Blitz because of that -1. At least you've got the Iron Bundle in now, so we're going to have to play this wonderful game of speed ties between the opposing Iron Bundles once again. Can you go for a Hydro Pump into the opposing Arcanine? Because that would be able to pick up a KO. You can almost certainly pick up a KO on the opposing Iron Bundle with a Freeze Dry here. So it's going to come down to the speed interactions between this Iron Bundle and the targeting as well. You could get a KO with either the Iron Bundle or the Arcanine with Sam's Iron Bundle, whether it's Freeze Dry or Hydro Pump. Could that allow this Great Tusk to do one more attack? Because it's going to underspeed both of these Pokemon here. But if it's able to get off one more attack, we saw that was enough to be able to KO the Iron Bundle. It would still do huge damage to the opposing Arcanine. Maybe not now, because it is turning it into its water typing instead. So if there was a Hydro Pump into that slot, that would be a fantastic choice of defensive Terra.
It really would, this water Terror type on the Arcanine, as it's Freeze Dry coming out from Iron Bundle into the Iron Bundle on Lorenzo's side. So that does go down for Lorenzo, and he's down to his final 2 Pokemon. It's Flare Blitz coming out from Arcanine, going into Sam's Iron Bundle, brings it down to about half of its health. And of course, Arcanine takes that recoil damage as well. Headlong Rush able to come out from Sam's Great Tusk into this now Water Terror Arcanine. Arcanine is able to survive on about 1/5 of its health as Great Tusk takes another defense drop, but of course this Burn chip and the Life Orb chip is going to be able to take it down this turn. But what a lot of work that Great Tusk was able to put in.
Definitely put in more work than it had any right to, given the position it was in. Being intimidated, being burned immediately, it still did massive damage. Like, it was still able to do half to the Iron Hands. It was still able to do the half with the close combat to the opposing Iron Bundle. But the Fluttermane has been KO'd on Sam's side of the field. The Great Tusk has now been KO'd, and you're left with Iron Bundle and Talonflame. You can do okay damage with Hydro Pump into the Golden Go that's just shown in the field for Lorenzo, but we saw that that didn't even do half. You need to commit a Brave Bird and 2 Hydro Pumps to KO this Golden Go. Are you going to be able to have enough time to be able to do that? Because Golden Go's still at full HP. Iron Bundle's in range of Make It Rain. Talonflame's going to be very close to being in range of just Shadow Ball. Almost certainly, if you go for Flare Blitz and Shadow Ball, that would KO the Talonflame. So are you going to be able to have enough turns to be able to take care of this Golden Go?
Yes, it's a big question, as this Golden Go is indeed on full health. As Arcanine goes for a Protect, we saw Iron Bundle going for a Protect for Sam. Golden Go also going for a Protect. So whatever the Talonflame is going for here, unless there's a status move, no, it was in fact a Brave Bird into Arcanine. So Arcanine keeps itself safe. Could have been a opportunity for a Tailwind, but it wouldn't have been too important in this position anyway.
No, not particularly. And now you've stouted out the Protect of the Iron Bundle. I think that's probably the best opportunity for Sam here is probably go for a Freeze Dry Freeze, because we've seen that the Hydro Pump, even a critical hit Hydro Pump with a Brave Bird, surely is still not enough to KO the opposing Golden Go. That would just be able to go for a Make It Rain, and then you follow up the KO into the Talonflame with the Flare Blitz. So maybe having to rely on the Freeze Dry Freeze here to be able to get some extra KOs. Going for a Double Protect is pretty reasonable as well, but that does end up failing.
That ends up failing as Brave Bird comes out from Talonflame into Arcanine. It is enough to pick up the knockout, but unfortunately Iron Bundle is not able to keep itself safe for a second turn running. Arcanine does go down, but what is this Golden Go going to respond with as Talonflame takes its recoil damage? It is, of course, its signature Make It Rain, which is enough to pick up the knockout on Iron Bundle. Talonflame, and indeed its critical hit on the Iron Bundle, I'm not sure that mattered, as Talonflame has about 1/4 of its health remaining, and unfortunately it seems like this Talonflame is just not going to be able to deal the damage it needs to this Golden Go.
If it had Flare Blitz, there would have been a chance. That would have still been some pretty reasonable damage, but just Brave Bird means that there is no chance for this Talonflame. Sam realizes it, forfeits the match, and Lorenzo is going to be able to be the one to move on to the 11 wins and 3 losses. So still has that potential to squeak into that top 8.
Yes, let's hope he does. And yeah, that's the final round of Swiss now. So it will be our top cup matches coming after this. My main question is why Sam didn't go for a couple of Earthquakes on his Great Tusk when he had his Talonflame on the field next to the Great Tusk, because that would have provided some good spread damage while his Talonflame was kept safe.
Well, the fear would have probably been that the Iron Hands, even though it's taken half of its HP, that it could have gone for the Terra Grass. Like, you're covering for that with a Brave Bird, but you're an intimidated Brave Bird. So it's still actually not going to be doing too much damage. And Iron Hands would probably survive even super effective Brave Bird and the Earthquake coming out from the Great Tusk. It probably wouldn't be able to survive both Brave Bird and Headlong Rush still. So that might have been why the Sam went for that, because then that's almost certainly a KO into that slot. That allowed the switch into the Iron Bundle, which is a little bit awkward going forward. But that was a lot of potential damage that could have been into the Arcanine. And we saw Arcanine, it survived until basically right at the end when Sam wasn't able to beat the Golden Go anymore. So that extra Earthquake damage could have been crucial to allow just even a 2v1 or a 3v1 in the end it might have even been, because that Arcanine would have been put so low and then being taken care of a couple of turns earlier. Then you can go on to the offensive on the Golden Go with potentially the Iron Bundle, potentially the Talonflame as well. And that might have been enough.
Might have been enough, and of course, the crucial problem in that game 3 for Sam was that the Golden Go was able to come out very late on in the game with full health. So if you're able to break through some of your opponent's Pokemon sooner, then the Golden Go obviously is forced to come out sooner and has to take some damage. But as it was, Sam was losing resources, and then Golden Go comes in full health, raring to go from Lorenzo's side.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still going to ask this question, because it's been every single time. Was Talonflame necessary? You've got Tailwind, sure. Did it come into play in those games? Like once in game 2? Like there was the Iron Bundle occasionally, but then the Tailwind was able to be stored out. You were faster with pretty much every other Pokemon. You can go for Icy Wind to make the Arcanine slower than the Great Tusk. was Tailwind necessary?
Yeah.
That's the main question that I'm asking at the moment, because Gothitelle could have been very nice as a lead. You've seen Arcanine Iron Hands as the lead for like all 3 games. If you trap that in, assumedly your Gothitelle is faster than Iron Hands. It does tend to be. You can run Iron Hands very fast, but for the most part, you should expect your Gothitelle to outspeed Iron Hands. You get the fake out into that slot, and you can do whatever you want with your partner. You can do exactly the same thing as the Talonflame. You can start spamming Thunder Waves as speed control as well, but the fact that there was the Talonflame not really applying any kind of pressure at all really came back to bite Sam, I think, because even if you have Flare Blitz, I think Talonflame would have been very, very good in that match.
Yeah.
Even just being able to Flare Blitz the opposing Golden Go, but the fact that it just had Brave Bird meant that it wasn't really doing the damage.
Yeah, it wasn't. Lorenzo would have had to have gone for the Terra on his Golden Go into the Water type for that Brave Bird to pick up any kind of significant damage. But yes, it's been the question of the weekend, at least from Jamie and me, was the Talonflame necessary? We've seen it come out to a lot of games where it hasn't been able to provide so much, and it'll be really interesting to hear from Sam why he went for that choice of Talonflame over something like the Gothitelle. But as it is, you know, he was still able to get a game off Lorenzo, but it is Lorenzo that takes this set.
It was still possible in that game 3. If there was an Earthquake, then it would have been pretty reasonable for Sam to be in a winning position going into that endgame, but unfortunately, trying to cover for the defensive Terra on the Iron Hands, but did not happen, allowed for a defensive Terra in the future with the Arcanine, which allowed it more time on the field. So a little bit of just tiny optimizations could have come into the play. So yeah, it ends up being a much closer game in the end, because there was just a couple of minor tweaks that could have changed the outcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the thing, having reached our 14th round of Swiss and the final one for this particular special event, you can see the fatigue starting to set in for these trainers. You know, I'm sure it's one of those things where Sam could take a step back, or on a different morning he'd come in and make those adjustments and it would all go fantastically for him. But it's just trying to keep that freshness up going through all of these matches. It's really tough.
Yeah, I'm a bit sad we didn't see the Roaring Moon, because it was a really cool one. Like, Terra Ground, Stomping Tantrum, you don't see that every day.
No.
In fact, I've never seen it before at all. Yeah. So you never see it every day. So yeah, it would have been really, really good to see that it comes to that match, but obviously Lorenzo did end up bringing the correct 4 to be able to win the set. So we'll have to see if they are able to squeak into that top cut, because I would like to see that Roaring Moon, because it is a very, very cool set indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And yet, even though Lorenzo won that match, of course, he's not guaranteed a place in top cut. There'll only be a few of the trainers in his position with that 11-3 record who'll be able to make it through to the top cut. But, you know, we're keeping our fingers crossed for him, and it'll be fascinating to see how the top cut develops. And commiserations to Sam, but also what a fantastic performance. Going 10-4 at a tournament like this is no easy feat.
Yeah, that's still going to be a solid amount of championship points ready for the qualification for the World Championships. So if you've gotten 10-4, you're probably getting top 32 CP, and that's a good chunk. Yeah. Because, yeah, you're about a fifth of the way there with that result towards the qualification. So, yeah, there's nothing to scoff at all.
No, exactly. And it just goes to show how much there is to gain even when you don't go all the way and win an event like this. And, you know, championship points aside, it's also just an opportunity to catch up with these people again in person and soak up the atmosphere of everything going on here with Go and TCG, as well as VGC and your friends in the community and all the side events that are going on. So just a wonderful atmosphere to be a part of, and anything that comes with it is sort of the cherry on top.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd very much want to be in that top 8, but being able to watch the top 8 as well is a very, very good experience. It's a great atmosphere when we've got down to we're almost at the point where we're crowning our champion. These are some very intense games coming forward. So just being in the venue as well to be able to watch those is going to be very, very nice. And of course, watching from home, we'll be trying to cover all of the action going forward as well, because we have now finished our round 14. That is going to be it from Swiss. So coming up soon will be that top cut. We'll have to wait and see who is going to be joining us in that top 8.
Yes, we absolutely will. And we're just waiting on confirmation as to whether we'll be able to bring a winner's interview to you, since that game did go to 3 rounds. But we'll bring that confirmation to you very shortly. Tyranitar. That didn't come out from Sam's side, and with good reason, I think.
Yeah, from talking to Sam, Tyranitar's on there for Indeedee Armourouge.
Yeah.
Because if you've got Gothitelle and you trap them in Indeedee Armourouge and with a Tyranitar on the field, what can they do?
Yeah.
Nothing. They just wait and lose, basically. So that's the main reason why Sam has the Tyranitar on the team. Obviously, that is not what was brought for Lorenzo in this game. It doesn't seem like it would have the best matchup here. Because you've got the Iron Hands, that would Drain Punch everything. The Arcanine's going to be able to intimidate and Will-O Spit. Golden Go matches up very well because you can just go for a defensive terror, so you're not weak to Crunch anymore, and do massive damage with Make It Rains as well. Even the Roaring Moon, it can hit it with Stomping Tantrum. Normally, well, a standard Roaring Moon, it runs its Dark coverage, and then it has its Flying as its main form of offense.
Yeah.
That doesn't hit Tyranitar at all.
No.
This one does. So the fact that Tyranitar would have been good against a Roaring Moon didn't come to the match, but it would have been good against it. It wasn't, because it could have been Terra Ground as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Could have been Terra Ground, and maybe in a future match we'll see that Terra Ground Roaring Moon coming out from Lorenzo. I certainly hope that we do. But, you know, this weekend it's really been a tale of Fluttermane and Iron Bundles in terms of Paradox Pokemon. We had two on both Sam's and Lorenzo's side of the field with, let me just compare their movesets here. With the same moveset, and both booster energy, but the difference was that Sam's had the Terra type of Ice, so more offensive, and Lorenzo's had the Terra type of Grass, so more defensive.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll have to wait and see what the reasons were behind those choices, because we can now jump over to our interview with the winner of the previous round, Lorenzo.
Welcome back, trainers. We are here with the winner, of course, of the last Swiss match. Yeah, he's waving hello. So after that match, how are you feeling?
I feel really good, and I was nervous before the start of the final round, but at the moment I'm enjoying the time and also the win.
Yeah, of course, naturally. Well, as we've seen in the match, I feel like the Golden Go was really the key factor there for all three of those games, where it did do a lot of the work for you.
Yeah, I know that Specs Fluttermane is solid when with Moonblast against Iron Hands, but is not so good against Arcanine or Goldengo himself. So I decided to bring him. And also for the Perish, and also for the Shadow Tech Gotitel. He's the only Ghost type that I have, and he doesn't suffer the status move because Gotitel has also Thunder Wave. So I thought that it was a real deal.
Yeah, it was a good choice there to make, honestly.
Thank you.
And the team looking very solid, like as we saw on stream. How did you come to create a team?
I created the team. I'm playing this team from the beginning of the Series 2. I also saw that Eric Rios and also Guillermo Castilla, two Spanish players, play the team and also have had good results. But he is a bit different team. I have, for example, Clear Amulet, Terra Ground, Roaring Moon, because I feel better with some changes that I have from day one of the Series 2. So I decided to maintain my ideas.
Yeah, your own touch on that team, actually.
Yeah, I saw that it was a solid team that had some result, but I have to bring my personal version.
Exactly. You have a little bit of a preference to some things. And, for example, Stomping Tantrum as well on that, which is something that you don't see quite often, which is your kind of, well, a little bit of the flavor, is a little bit of the spice to bring to it as well. And, like, looking at, like, the previous, because, like, congratulations on the win again.
Thank you.
Now, looking at your tournament run, was there anything particular, like a special round where something amazing happened or something?
I faced during the day one Titan, Terra Electric with the belly drum and Earthquake, and I have 4 months that are weak against ground. And it was a bit. I was really nervous before when I saw the team list. But I managed to win. But he also has stuff like I don't remember the name actually because it was a really strange.
It was a strange team.
I only remember Titan because I was really scared.
Yeah. It's sometimes those Pokemon that you don't see quite often can still surprised you quite a bit as well.
I also faced the Medichamp
Medi-
day 2.
Yeah, exactly. We have heard about the
I
Medichamp.
had some strange experience during this.
Yeah,
these
so
days.
you have. It is a bit fun to see all these. Now, we have just had Regulation B or Series 2, and now soon at EUYC there will be Series 3 or Regulation C. Have you already made a team for that?
This will be my only tournament of the season because I work and I'm really busy. But I had some time to do this.
Yeah.
And I came here only for have fun. And I think that playing like that without thinking about anything about the CPs or anything else, I think that allows me to do well because this is my first tournament this season, second in general, and I think that the difference was the mental health that I had during all the tournament.
That is amazing to hear. Just come here to have fun and still play this well.
Thank you so much.
That is so good to see.
Thank you so much.
I'm happy to hear that as well. So yeah, not going to future tournaments. You've only been able, but future-wise, hopefully still going to see a lot more of you in tournaments.
We'll see. I don't know. I really don't know.
That is hard to say, of course. But you have won today, which is something amazing. Is there anything anyone or anything you'd like to shout out?
Yeah, I want to thank my girlfriend, Camilla. I want to say hi, and also Valerio, a friend of mine that helped me with the team, and also Roxas and the Sax group that also helped me with something, because I was really worried before the tournament start. And also to my friends of Rome, Flavio Del Pidio, Daniele Spuntarelli, Manuel Micaletto, Nova, and also others.
There's a lot.
Yeah. My roommate, Francesco Urru, and also other guys. There are so many. I want to thank everyone because
I absolutely understand that. I'm so happy to see that the list is so long of dear people that have been able to help you. Thank you very much for this interview.
Thank you.
And we'll be joining you shortly, trainers, in the top 8 as well.
Goodbye.